fantastic. You're gonna love him. Go crazy. Make some noise for Phil Hanley, everybody.
Everybody, I'm not only a comedian, I'm also a stay-at-home son.
Offstage, 30-something comedian Phil Hanley really does still live in his parents' basement.
I promised my mom I'd clean the bathroom. Basically, it's like a setup for an apartment. I got a fully functional kitchen.
Hanley's lifestyle is comedic gold, part of a global phenomenon, young adults still living at home with their parents. In Italy, they're called bambaccioni, big babies. In the UK, they're yuckies, young, unwittingly costly kids. In North America, we've christened them boomerangs for their tendency to keep coming home.
My friends would be like, when are you gonna get your own place? And probably not for a long time because my parents are really healthy.
We told them to follow their bliss. Well, they're following their bliss and they're living under our roof because they can't.
Is it because of a tough economy?
It's simply not the same world that boomers navigated when they were coming of age.
Or because the kids aren't tough enough?
There's a lot less willingness to go out and get an entry-level job and live in a cheap apartment with a roommate and eat Mr. Noodles.
But hang on. Maybe adult offspring living at home isn't such a bad idea.
Why not spend most of your 20s trying to figure out what you really want out of life and where you fit into the world?
But what if we're raising a generation of Peter Pans who never grow up?
Is saying you can stay home and live here rent-free until you find a job. Is that doing them any favors?
And is it doing us any favors? Will the kids be ready to take over when we need them? It's a big step up from the lesson we've been teaching them, that when the going gets tough, you can always go home.
Hi, Mom, I'm home.
Today in Canada, more than half of 20 to 29-year-old adults still live at home. That's double what it was 25 years ago. And these young adults are delaying careers and families just as their boomer parents are approaching retirement.
I mean, the welfare of a society rests on replenishing itself, right? As old people die and new ones are born in, and to the extent that there's an imbalance there, that has real implications for the well-being of society.
For better or worse, we'd better get used to it. Adult children living at home are the new normal throughout the Western world. In England, where 1 in 3 parents are remortgaging their homes to support adult children, 37-year-old Kirsty has returned home for the 4th time. In Italy, 35-year-old Andrea is a typical bambaccioni, big baby. Here, it's a tradition, adult children still living under mama's wing. For the Reyes family of Brampton, Ontario, it's also a cultural tradition for children to stay home until they wed. But 29-year-old Caleb is ready to leave. 25-year-old Ashley of Vancouver is doing the opposite, heading back home after 8 years of living on her own. Having no desire to share their home with 30-year-old kids, the Lermits of Richmond, BC have drawn a line in the sand. 25 and you're out.
Sometimes you have to kick the little birdie out of the nest, right? Because I think there is a lot of comfort at home. Are you guys coming up to the cabin or not coming up to the cabin? They don't go to the
Jan and Paul Lermit have 3 adult sons. 1 recently married. 2 of them are still living at home. 24-year-old Patrick lives in the same bedroom he's had since he was a little boy.
It's like my little fortress of solitude, I guess. I spend large portions of my time in my room. It's my office as well.
Patrick earned a diploma in theater stagecraft, but then found a new passion, filmmaking. So he's starting over to build contacts in an industry where jobs are scarce, and that means staying home even longer.
Like, I'd rather be working full time, but for me, I don't want to be stuck in a job where I'm not happy.
A year younger at 23, brother Jeremy hungers for the independence of which he's already had a taste.
It's hard living away for 4 years and then coming back.
I don't look at myself as the perfect catch right now. I can't really bring a girl home. Doesn't really work out that well, so I don't have a job. And I live with my parents. It doesn't fly that well.
But for now, Jeremy sees home as a necessary harbor while he studies to be a financial analyst.
I mean, I see it as I can take the time now and really figure out like what exactly I want to do.
And because their parents can afford it, Jeremy and Patrick have the luxury of time to pursue their dreams and to acquire more education. This is another real shift in the framework of our society. It wasn't so long ago that young people could strike out on their own and make it just on brains and hard work. But today, more than ever, the single most important factor that determines whether young adults fail or succeed is the amount of financial support and guidance they get from parents.
So much for the American dream, that much of what determines how far young people get in life now is not about the investment that they put in, but about the investment that their parents make. So that young people who come from backgrounds where parents don't have resources to invest in them, where parents don't have the kind of know-how about how you get into college, how you get ahead, really struggle as they make their way through these years. And that's a major difference between now and the past.
But the Lermits don't want to coddle their kids, which is why they've established the 25 and you're out rule.
By 25, mom and dad have done their best to give you an education, set you up, but at some point, independence is what's going to take you to the next level of your life.
So the clock is ticking for Patrick. No steady job in sight and 6 months until his 25th birthday.
So, this year, I'm officially kicked out of the house.
At 25, Ashley Connery is moving back into her mother's house after years on her own. Now a program manager with a Vancouver nonprofit, Ashley went to university away from home and then traveled and even worked abroad. When her work visa ran out, Ashley returned home, and she decided to stay to be close to her 95-year-old grandpa.
Good, how are you?
I didn't want to miss the end of his life.
I went to see Grandpa today.
Oh, nice.
How's he? He's good.
And I haven't lived with her for 8 years, and when she left, she was a child. So I thought that the opportunity for me is just to know her.
Early on, Ashley sat her mom down to negotiate the terms of their new living arrangement.
She has a plan, and her plan includes going to get her master's at UBC, and she also wants to buy an apartment. And so saving money by staying at home is part of that. No, I listened to her plan, and I bought into it.
We also had a conversation about how much it costs for me to live here for her, and mostly it's in water and food. I was like, basically, will you feed and water me for 2 more years?
And Ashley also proposed that she pay no rent. Although she has money in the bank, she doesn't want to spend her nest egg.
I've seen other people who had similar savings use that money to pay for their master's degree and not get a job afterwards. So now they have no money to move out. And they have a really great degree, but they have no job and they have no savings.
It's happening all over the world, in all sorts of families, across all income levels, parents and adult children living under the same roof. In the UK, which has been hard hit by the recession, a recent survey revealed that 1 in 4 young adults between 20 and 30 has returned home at least twice.
So what did you decide to make in the end?
I'm making doing the soup for lunch.
Kirsty Davenport is one of those boomerangers driven back home by misfortune.
I've ended up coming home this time because my partner left us in December.
Why don't you move that? This is Kirsty's 4th retreat to her mom's home in southwest England. This time, she brings her 3-year-old daughter, Mia.
When I met my partner, to me, that was forever. Oh, sorry, that was forever. So now it's not. I didn't expect to be home because I thought Mia's got her mum and her dad.
Oh my God. You're not going to get that in there, are you?
When Kirsty came home, she had a lot of baggage, including props for her home-based business, planning children's parties.
Is there stuff that we can get rid of?
No.
Do you have to keep everything?
Yes.
Mom's dining room is now head office.
I work from this table. I have some things in my bedroom, under the bed. Yeah, anywhere that I can find a little hole for anything to go is where it goes.
Kirsty also runs a daycare out of Mom's living room.
Go on then, darling, take boots and shoes off.
I probably wouldn't have entertained it if we didn't get on. And the other thing you haven't done, you've got to phone about the school.
Kirsty would like to be independent, but truly can't imagine how.
Mum does all the washing, all the cleaning, all the ironing, the things that I can't stand. And now I wonder, I can't leave because I can't work full-time, look after my daughter and do the ironing and the cooking and the cleaning. Mum does that. So I think, I'm going to have to stay now because I'm never going to cope in the real world.
Young adults unable to cope running home to Mom and Dad. Sounds so strange to boomers, even when they're the parents.
I do think I compare what our life looked like when I was 25 years old and what our kids' lives look like at 25 years old. I had 2 kids at 25 years old. We were fully independent, and it's hard not to say things like, well, when I was your age.
There is a whole new generation coming, soon to be young adults.
In a way, it's a real problem when we judge young people today based on a standard that emerged in the 1950s. The boomers and everything that came thereafter, in a way, is the blip. It's the aberration.
In the prosperous decades after the Second World War, good jobs were easy to come by, even with a high school diploma.
You left home, you finished school quickly, you got a job, you got married, you had kids, and in many cases, all those things were done by the early to mid-20s. And part of the cultural ethos was that it would have been horribly embarrassing to have been living home with parents, right? The expectation was that you leave.
But today's youth are faced with a completely different economic reality. To get ahead requires post-secondary education, and tuition keeps going up. Today, the average Canadian university student graduates with a $28,000 debt. Finding a job to pay off that debt is tricky. At 14%, unemployment for young people is almost double the general population. For boomers who came of age when education was cheap and jobs were plentiful, it's hard to truly grasp that young people today may simply be caught between a rock and a soft landing on Mom's couch.
Well, in some ways, the transition to adulthood today more closely resembles, in a way, what it looked like at the turn of the last century, and that's kind of shocking to a lot of people.
In the early 1900s, young people stayed home until they were self-supporting and ready to start their own families. But there is one big difference between great-granddaddy's time and today.
Whereas in the turn of the century, the picture was much more about young people as kind of integrated members of the household, contributing in really critical ways to the household and the family unit. Today, the exchange of resources comes almost completely downward from parents to children.
I mean, I know that the economy is the reason that everybody gives for why kids are coming home. But it's not just the economy, because the fact is there are crummy, dirty jobs that pay a not quite living wage. But our kids aren't willing to. They're not needy enough, because we don't want them to have to literally stoop to that kind of thing. So we don't insist that they do it.
Coming up, how much is the Boomerang kid a direct product of boomer parenting?
You know, we were a generation that professionalized parenting, that worried more about their self-esteem than we did about their get up and go make a living.
And later, say goodbye to Freedom 55. How's Freedom 85 sound?
In some cases, they're even going into debt to take care of their adult children.
My dad tells my neighbors I'm an exchange student. He makes me wear a Hello Kitty backpack.
The joke makes people laugh because there's a kernel of truth. For many families with adult children still at home, there's a trace of discomfort. On a regular weekday morning at the Lermott household, Paul and Jan are out the door early to work. Upstairs, Patrick's asleep. He's on the night shift, a short-term gig as an assistant film editor. Even though he's working, Patrick knows his living arrangement still draws criticism.
People make it sound like it's such a terrible thing, like, whoa, it's terrible. You're living with the people that raised you all your life, that brought you into the world. Like, what's so bad about that?
I think parents and young people are in the middle of a kind of tricky dance where they're not sure how this is supposed to look and feel.
When Paul and I got married, we were both students. We had no money. Our parents didn't say, "Oh, honey, can we, pay your rent for you for the first month?" They just thought, "Well, this is what you've chosen. You got married. You're adults. You're gonna do this.
You're out of the house.
You're out of the house. Goodbye."
Ashley Connery knows that many people think she should be out of the house too, as an educated woman with a good job. To preserve her image at work, she doesn't tell people that she's back living with Mom.
When people ask me where I live, I give them the area. This neighborhood is called the Heights. I live in the Heights. Spin it.
Many of Ashley's friends are in the same boat. University educated, employed, and still at home.
My parents just left for Ontario for 10 days, so I have the house to myself, which is amazing.
Like her friend Ashley, Helen doesn't broadcast that she lives at home.
People perceive you as less of an adult. It's like you haven't graduated to the next stage of life yet. I've traveled, I've worked abroad, I've studied abroad, I've lived on my own, and so I hesitate to tell people that I do live at home until, they know other things about me and can see me for who I really am, not just someone who can't afford to pay rent in Vancouver.
But Ashley admits to a double standard. She's quick to judge guys who still live at home.
You would never go out with a guy who lived at home, and it doesn't really matter his age, you just wouldn't go out with a guy who lived at home. Because, well, for lack of a better phrase, where would you sleep?
Some families feel no stigma. It's expected that kids stay home until they marry. Son Caleb was 7 when the Reyes family of Brampton, Ontario immigrated to Canada from Guatemala. Now 29, Caleb makes good money at a full-time construction job. But he'll still go home to meals by Mama at the end of the day.
What's up?
Not much. You guys call it a phenomenon, I call it reality.
Always in my mind, since I have them, that they were going to stay with me until they get married. That's me. And that's how it's supposed to be.
Tradition also dictates that Mom does all the cooking and all the housework.
Right now, I couldn't imagine actually living on my own, like having to really hold my own. I'd be like, man, it'd be rough. I'd be rough for the beginning anyway.
Caleb is about to make the tough transition from the comfort of his parents' home into managing his own family. In 6 months, he and Michelle, who also lives at home, are getting married.
The fact that I'm getting married, some of the stuff that I do now, I can't be doing that with my fiance because she ain't having it. She's like, she goes to me. She told me, Caleb, I'm not gonna be your mother.
At one time, we associated adult children at home with certain cultural groups. Now it's becoming the norm around the world and across cultures. Psychologist Jeffrey Arnett has a theory. He says we're seeing the dawning of a completely new life stage, the emerging adult.
Emerging adulthood is a new stage of the lifespan, and it lasts from about age 18 to 25. People are on their way to adulthood, but not there yet.
According to Arnett, society should embrace this longer road to adulthood as normal and positive.
I think they probably have a better chance of happiness if they make those decisions at 25, 27, 29 than if they make them at 18 or 19 or 20. I think their judgment is going to be better. They're going to have more life experience to base it on. So why rush into it?
In other words, 30 is the new 20.
I think they are less mature. I think 50 years ago, if you got married at age 20 or 21, had a child a year later, boy, you were an adult right there. I mean, you had to be mature. But you could say that maybe that was a premature maturity, that a lot of them weren't ready for it.
There's new brain research that seems to support Arnett's view. It was once believed that the brain stopped developing shortly after puberty. But recent MRI research reveals that the part of the brain responsible for reasoning and problem solving is among the last to mature, at around 25 years of age. Does that mean that young people should be kept under their parents' wing until they're in their mid-20s and their brain is fully developed? According to neuroscientist Thomas Paz, that's not the way it works.
Well, there is no way that the brain is going to develop if it's deprived of challenges. So if you put a young teenager into an adult role, it's very likely that it's going to change his or her brain. That brain is going to start shaping up in the adult way much faster than a brain of today teenager who is not put into those adult roles. And I think that we shouldn't be protecting always our children from all the bad things that might happen to them. They need to sort out many things on their own.
But leaving kids to sort things out and take their lumps was not in the Boomer Parenting Handbook. Boomers formed small families with intense focus on the kids, who were often overindulged and overprotected. Boomers wanted their kids to have every advantage and to remain close.
We want to be the kinds of parents whose kids would choose us as friends, even if they weren't related to us. You know, most of us never told our kids that we expected them to leave home. Isn't that amazing?
Social psychologist Jane Addams spends much of her time coaching boomers who are now dealing with the fallout.
Our two sons have absolutely no motivation to do anything. Both of them have not finished high school. Both of them are not working. They have absolutely no motivation to do anything.
And they both, how old are they now?
27 and 23.
And how are they supporting themselves?
How are we supporting them?
How are you supporting them?
In this rather extreme situation, Addams counsels tough love.
You can't say you have to have a job or you have to finish school. You can say you have to be out of here by certain dates. And I'm assuming that you will want a high school diploma before you go looking for a job. So you have 4 more months to live here until you do. But that's it. And then sticking to it. I'm moving them toward accepting that their kids are adults with an adult's responsibility for their own happiness and survival. They don't get to just be sponges. That's all there is to it.
There's no sponging allowed at the Lermits. As long as they're living at home, the Lermit sons are expected to help out. But the rule on rent is pretty sweet. For Jeremy, free while he's in school. And for Patrick, still a real bargain.
I pay probably half of what I would be paying on my own, if that, maybe even a quarter.
It's less than what it would be fair market out there, but they're still too bad, so sad. You're eating the food, electricity does cost, and so you have to pay those bills.
Money is always a problem when you have adult children who are living at home because they're usually there for financial reasons.
Christina Newberry speaks from experience. She boomeranged home twice in her 20s and has turned the experience into a business with her book and website, The Hands-On Guide to Surviving Adult Children Living at Home.
I target all of my resources to parents because I don't think in many cases the adult children perceive that there's a problem. Hi, I'm Christina Newberry. Often, adult children living at home are either unemployed or underemployed.
Judging from the response to Newberry's blog and YouTube postings, there are plenty of problems, especially when the kids have returned home after a taste of independence.
Don't start passing out your child. They might want some of the perks that come along with being parented, like a free place to live or maybe even getting their laundry done in some cases, but they don't want to be told where they're supposed to be. They don't want to be told they have a curfew. They don't want to be told they have to do chores.
Newberry says the solution is a contract outlining the rules of the house, like noise levels, car use, and...
The really big one is whether or not boyfriends and girlfriends are allowed to come home and stay overnight. If the adult child's been living on their own for a while, they might just think that's what they do, and the girlfriend or boyfriend stays over, and the parents might be really uncomfortable with that.
My mom's old school. If my fiance stays over, she stays in my room, I'm on the couch. Or it makes it easier for somebody, right? When somebody sets the boundaries for you, than having to set them for yourself.
You're gonna do the puzzle with Mia?
Kirsty and Mom Pauline grapple with a whole different set of issues since Kirsty returned home with a child of her own.
Right, I'll put that one in there then.
Trying to be a parent with a parent is very difficult. I do feel like, sorry Mum, I do feel like I'm stuck in the middle because we're different generations of how we look after our children. I try and do my best, but Madam here will say, just calm down, just relax, just ignore her. Okay, I'll ignore her. Then she gets cross. And it's like, no, you've just told me to calm down. And now you've just got cross. So that's when it gets really difficult. And I think Mia sits there going, Right. Sorry, Mum, I'm not doing anything.
Still, there is clearly comfort and closeness found in being two women facing the world together.
So if you have had a bad day, we can come downstairs and moan about it. Or even if we just sit on the sofa and not talk to each other at all, there's someone else there. And you might only say throughout the evening, cup of tea? Yeah.
Glass of wine?
Yeah, or glass of wine.
Gin and tonic?
Coming up, it may be comfy being a mama's boy in Italy, but there's a price.
The country is very damaged by this. Italy is going down and down.
So Pat, tell me about you.
And later, 3 months until Patrick turns 25 and has to be out of the house, and still no steady job in sight.
Not scared, not worried about it, just going with the flow.
I love going out for lunch with my mom, because she pays. Unless if the waitress is really pretty, I pay. I'm like, Mom, I got it. You know I always get it. Pass me my purse.
Italy. Land of stunning architecture, fabulous food, and now home to the highest rate in the Western world of adult children living with their parents. 70% of Italians between 18 and 30 still live at home, 80% of men. 35-year-old Andrea Balzani is well launched into a good career with Italy's National Bank. Yet he's never moved away from the comfort of his parents' apartment in central Rome. And Andrea pays not €1 of rent, leaving him lots of money to spend on himself. Just one of the perks of living casa mamma.
It's not that I can't take care of myself. On the contrary, I just don't do it because it's convenient to live here. And you have company, of course, that cares about you.
Andrea's mama is simply happy to keep her boy close.
I think parents, especially Italian parents, are very, I won't say possessive, but they're a bit like mother hens.
It's become a vicious cycle and could well be a cautionary tale for Canada. Comfortable in their parents' home, many young Italians simply lose the motivation to go out and look for work.
The country is very damaged by this. Italy is going down and down, doesn't grow, doesn't develop new ideas.
Journalist Mario Adinolfi left home at age 19, which, at the time, his parents considered far too young. But Mario credits his success to that early independence. From his apartment in Rome, Adinolfi publishes a magazine with the express purpose of lighting a fire under young Italians.
If you phone home in a house where there is under 30 years old or under 40 years old that lives with parents at 9 a.m., you will be sure that that guy or that girl will be sleeping at 9 a.m. You'll be sure about that.
Adinolfi doesn't blame it all on unmotivated youth. He says the real culprit is government policy that favors boomers, the older generation's job security and pensions over youth opportunity. That effect is multiplied by parents' inclination to keep offspring close, so they'll look after them in their old age.
I think they think that when we are older and older, I gave a lot to him, so he will give me back. It's a strange relationship because it's not always a love relation. It's something about trading, let's say.
In the UK, the burden of supporting adult children is turning baby boomers into baby gloomers.
6 in 10 parents of 25-year-olds say that they are going to have to retire later than they had planned because they are helping their young adult children with their debts, with their studies, or with their housing.
Parents are not only retiring later, 1 in 3 is actually remortgaging their home to support adult children.
All their life plans are being turned upside down. Everything they thought they were going to do is being turned upside down.
Pauline's life has definitely been upended, not so much financially as personally. Daughter Kirsty contributes to the household expenses, but Pauline sometimes misses the peace and quiet of being an empty nester.
I found that when I was working and I had a day off, I could sit and watch a black and white movie and peace and quiet. But I can't do that because they come back in and that's the end of it. They're expected to be quiet, and really you can't expect them to be quiet.
Back in Richmond, BC, the Lermits are working hard to keep their life plans on track by getting the kids ready to launch.
$10 a day, boy, you can live.
In his work as a financial planner, Paul Lermit runs a boot camp for young adults to help them reach financial independence.
As parents, we want to make sure that you guys are cash flow managing your money so that you're not taking my or your parents' retirement money.
In Canada, the average cost of raising a child to age 18 is $200,000. And that's not the end of it.
Parents end up spending a third of what they spent getting the kid to 18 again when the child is moving through the 20s.
That's on average another $60,000 from high school grad to independence. Money most parents hadn't expected to pay.
And often parents aren't just feeding their kids, paying for gas. They may also be paying for university. They may be buying them clothes so that they can go out on job interviews. They may be buying them a car so that they can go out and find work that involves a car.
A child who has a serious medical condition who needs our help to buy his medication, that's a safety net that some of us provide for them. A child who loses his job and can't make the payments on his Lexus is not nearly the same kind of crisis. Not in my house, but in some households, if it's a bump on the road to adulthood that a parent can smooth out, they do it.
So I want to know first, what are your expenses, the fixed expenses?
As the months go by, Paul Lermit keeps hammering home the fiscal responsibility message.
I don't like talking about money. I don't like dealing with budgeting. I don't like dealing any of that stuff.
Today, sporting a Stanley Cup playoff beard, Patrick is well aware that there's just 3 months to go before he turns 25 and is kicked out of the nest.
So in essence, you have to earn $1,500 a month just to live.
I know that. I understand.
Patrick has a couple of leads on temporary work and is starting to look for a place to live. He's finding rental prices a bit shocking.
Some of them are ridiculous. Living on my own is not an option. I'm sure that I'm a little bit anxious, but at the same time, I'm trying not to make it such a big deal. So now that I'm finally just essentially being given the boot, which, I mean, realistically, my dad wouldn't kick me out in September if I still couldn't get out anyways. Good luck trying.
That's good. It's in Boston. I'm glad it is. 25 is a good age to be out fending for yourself, seeing what it's like on the street. It's a rite of passage.
I'm not as hard-lined about stuff like this. So for Paul, he might feel like, well, on August 29th, which is his birthday, he's out of the house. But for me, it's a little more fluid than that. I'm more comfortable with...
I was thinking the 28th, day before.
The day before, yeah.
Yeah. No,
no, I just think that would I put my kid out on the street because
yes, it's a good thing.
I don't want to do that, but Paul will.
It's a good thing.
Coming up, a wedding for Caleb and D-Day for Patrick.
I've got friends and family that I can go couch surfing with for, a couple days here and there.
I'm not complaining, obviously, about my folks. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here. They dropped me off.
Good girl. In the UK, Kirsty is still living with her mom. Mia starts kindergarten this year, and Kirsty is going back to college. In Rome, Andrea is finally moving into an apartment of his own, but he'll be living in the same building as his parents, and they're making the down payment. 8 months into her 5-year plan to get a master's degree and buy an apartment, Ashley is still living at home and on target with her savings. 14. And in 24 hours, Caleb and Michelle tie the knot. During the past 2 weeks, Caleb has had his one and only taste of living on his own in the apartment that will be his new home with Michelle.
I didn't wait until the wedding to move out. I wanted to move out before because I'm like, I need a bachelor moment, at least if it's a week or two.
And it didn't take even that long for Caleb to realize his parents had sheltered him from cold reality.
There's a lot of money being spent, but I think I was just naive is the key word there. I was being a little bit naive.
Ready or not, here comes the bride. After 29 years of living at home, looked after by mom, Caleb steps abruptly into independence as he begins his own family.
I love you with all my heart, and I will protect you from anything or anybody.
For me, it's very special to see that my son is leaving home when he is going to build his own home, because that's what I wanted all my life. Since I had my babies.
You may now kiss the bride.
From this day forth, Caleb is expected to shoulder his own responsibilities.
One thing my mom always said to me, she goes, once you leave, I want you to leave. Right? I want you to be independent and actually do things for yourself.
It's supposed to be Independence Day for Patrick, too. Today is his 25 and you're out birthday. The good news, he's found work. A 6-month contract on a TV series, so he's self-supporting, at least for half a year. The bad news, no luck finding an apartment, so Patrick's not moving out today.
I plan to be out at 25, but technically, I mean, if we want to get technical about it, 25 and I'm out, I got a whole year until I'm 26, right? So, you know, I got some leeway.
Hey, guess what? You're not getting rid of me.
I mean, I get September rent?
Yeah.
Turns out Mr. Tough Dad isn't going to hold Patrick strictly to the rule. He'll allow a short period of grace.
Well, as long as you're working at it, I think that's great. You know, all things come step by step.
I think I knew that he wouldn't actually put him out on the street or anything. So it's, yeah. Paul likes to draw the line, and then, you know, if the line needs adjusting, he makes those adjustments, so.
At 23, Jeremy has 2 more years before he reaches that line. And according to his older brother, the threat of being kicked out of the nest will keep the pressure on.
It definitely makes a difference when your parents tell you, all right, 25 and you're out. I mean, I was searching nonstop to try to get work, but it made me search harder.
Did you make a wish?
You are officially 25. Well done.
But even though the Lermits are pushing their sons toward independence, there'll still be a safety net. Paul and Jan's own financial plans include contributing to the cost of their sons' weddings and helping out with down payments for their first house.
Will they pay it back like we paid it back? I sure hope so, because that will help us in our retirement. But just making their payments on their mortgage might be enough for them. And this is what I surmise, at least with my smart young men. They'll come back to me and say, Mom and Dad, do you want grandchildren? Or do you want us to pay down the mortgage that we owe you?
When they have the resources, many boomer parents are creating these individual safety nets for their kids. Maybe hoping the investment will pay off and the kids will be there for them when the time comes.
There's this closeness between parents and emerging adults that has never really existed in any previous generation. And so I don't think the emerging adults are just going to get into adulthood and say, well, I got mine now, Mom and Dad. You're on your own. I can't imagine that. These are close relationships. They're going to be mutually supportive relationships for a long time to come.
It's possible that this phenomenon of adult children living at home will pass when the economy picks up. More likely, we are in it for the long haul.
This period is no longer what it was, and it's not going away. I think a lot of that prolonged path to adulthood is here to stay.
Social scientists will continue to debate whether or not this is a healthy trend. And like Phil Hanley, they'll have lots of fresh material to work with for years to come.
Dad? Do you think they'll like me tonight? No. My mom recently asked me if I wanted to have kids, and I said, Ma, the real question is, do you want more roommates?